Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you all are safe and well. I'm Shivani Malhotra, co-founder and CEO of Positive Vibes Consulting, and a very, very warm welcome to our Leadership Spotlight series. As you know, for people who've been following this series, we bring to you insights by accomplished professionals who have demonstrated exemplar leadership in their respective fields and who continue to do innovative and path breaking work and add value to the fraternity. Today, I'm joined by one such leader who is a seasoned HR professional and certified executive coach with more than 15 years of domestic and international HR experience with world-class companies like Procter& Gamble, UPL, and Hero MotoCorp. Please join me in welcoming Atulya. Welcome, Atulya.
Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to be on this Spotlight series, and I look forward to a very exciting and a very interesting discussion today.
Absolutely. So do I. Really can't wait to start. For our listeners today, for our viewers today, a brief introduction about Atulya. So, Atulya has a proven track record of high impact results in various HR assignments in startup, sales, and marketing, commercial, supply chain, and regional roles. He has led HR business partnering and HR leadership assignments with exposure in core HR areas like talent acquisition, organization design and effectiveness, L&D, compensation and benefits, and the list goes on. Atulya is an HR professional with a very high inclination towards health and well-being. He's a marathon runner and a fitness enthusiast, inspiring people to make a difference to their productivity. And so he's a fitness corporate honcho. Let's put it like that. He's also a guest speaker and panelist at some of the top B schools of the country, like IITs, IIMs, and Symbiosis. He's also an avid YouTuber, making a difference to the lives of students and young HR professionals through his channel HR Shorts with Atulya. And we will share the link, in the comments for Atulya's HR Shorts with Atulya channel on YouTube, and it would be very, very beneficial to follow that because it has very good insights on very, very contemporary topics of HR, and especially very beneficial for people starting their careers in the field of HR. So great to have you with us, Atulya. It's a real pleasure. Thank you for taking out time. I'm really looking forward to our discussion today on a topic that is probably on everyone's mind. Future ready skills. The pace at which technology is constantly evolving is very soon going to transform the way we all work, and this pace of change means that organizations need to take a proactive role in ensuring that they have a workforce which is equipped with the skills of the future. And to accomplish this, employers first need to understand the skills that they will need to remain competitive and innovative, and then they need to understand how best to prepare and train their workforce and prepare to recruit, source, and hire talent for the future. So in this session, we'll discuss the top skills of the future, how technology is changing the way we work, and explore ways organizations can prepare for the future workforce. So, Atulya, when we speak about future readiness, we often refer to something called Industrial Revolution 4. Now, a lot of people would be curious to know what is this Industrial Revolution 4 all about? We keep hearing about it, but what do we mean by it? And more importantly, what do you think would be the impact of this, Industrial Revolution 4 on us as working professionals?
Yeah, very, very pertinent, and thanks so much for such a kind introduction, and really excited to be here, like I mentioned. So coming to the point on Industrial Revolution 4.0, and when you look at the entire journey from 1 to 3, which was more about steam engines, then mass production through assembly lines, then you had internet coming into the picture, and computer, laptops, internet, and so on. 4.0 is actually next level revolution. So it talks about how digital and how smart technology is actually going to influence each and every profession. And when I say each and every profession, it means anything that we're doing today. Think about your business, think about your profession in HR, think about sales and marketing, think about supply chain. So anything that exists today on professional front or even on personal front is going to have a huge influence of this word called digital. This is going to be playing a big role. How about this? Like, think about a simple example. I was watching a video the other day, and we keep hearing about a lot of terminologies when we talk about digital. So I must mention a few of them, which most of the viewers would be aware of, but it's important to talk about it. Is
Yeah.
artificial intelligence, you have machine learning, you have Internet of Things, you have big data, you have blockchain. So you'll keep hearing about these words again and again because each one of them will have a huge influence on the way the professions are going to operate in the future. So in a nutshell, 4.0 is about how digital is going to make a difference. I was watching a video the other day about IoT. It's a pretty interesting one. So it's a mom and a dad. It's two people who are coming to their homes. The garage opens automatically. Car gets parked. It switches off automatically. You enter the home. Your coffee machine has already kept your coffee ready for you. Your refrigerator tells you that you are out of stock with your eggs. Vegetables are replenished, but your eggs are not there. You need to order them. Your shower operates automatically. Your bathroom has a smart technology which tells you that your son is already occupying it, so it will take some more time for you to get ready. Your technology in the car tells you that you need to work on a flat tire or your gas is not up to the mark. So pretty much, think about anything which could get connected through a technology or influence our work life or personal life. Everything is going to evolve around Industrial Revolution 4.0. It's the future for sure. And
Right.
all the jobs are going to get affected by that.
Okay. That's an interesting one. The way you explained it with a very easy, to understand example of how even our personal lives is going to change, and just to share some insights here. According to labor economists, they predict that in less than 10 years, 77% of the jobs will require of the existing jobs will require very deep and specific skills, and a staggering 65% of today's primary school students, children are today who are in the primary school, will perform the jobs that haven't been invented yet.
That's
So
true.
we are talking about less than 10 years. I mean, look at the pace of change. That's the kind of change that we are talking about. So definitely it's going to be a completely different world. I mean, 10 years back, if someone was to say that I want to make a career as an influencer marketeer, or as a blogger, or as a content creator, um, you know people would say, what is that? Is there a job that exists which is an influencer marketing, or a digital, a digital marketeer? But today we have people taking up all kinds of careers. The jobs that didn't even exist in the last 10 years are now becoming very hot jobs. They've become really very sought after jobs. So I think the same thing is going to happen at a much faster pace now because of, like you said, AI, a lot of evolution in technology. So that's the kind of pace we are talking about. Great.
Absolutely.
Also, Atulya, we are talking about now being future ready, since we are going to see, we just discussed that there's going to be a lot of change, there's going to be a lot of evolution in the way we work. And let's decode that term now. What is future ready? What do we exactly mean by that? And what constitutes being future ready? And more importantly, why is it important to be ready for the future now?
So the first point, when you talk about being future ready, is about knowing how and where the world is moving around, right? So you just gave a very simple statistics here. So let me put one more element to that statistics. It's a McKinsey report which says that 3 to 13% of the global workforce would be changing their careers by 2030, or move into something which is going to be completely new. So
Right.
I think the whole piece on future readiness is about knowing how the external and the internal environment is getting affected, and we just talked about Industrial Revolution 4.0. So that's actually the starting point, because it tells you that most of the jobs are going to become either stable jobs or new jobs will get entered, will enter in the economy, and there would be plenty of jobs which would actually move out, and there's enough
Yeah.
research which is there. So having that awareness of where the world is going to move, how your ecosystem is going to change, is
Hmm.
something which is relevant for you to be future ready. A very simple example: field of agriculture where I come from, a lot of people might debate and say that, hey, what is the role of technology? It's simple farming, but think about a drone doing a spraying technology in a farmland and covering acreages of land at one shot versus a human spraying, which is being done by a tank, is a
Yeah.
simple example of how your world is going to change. And
Yeah.
if your world is going to change, you got to be very predictive. Your one skill set which needs to come in is you need to know what's happening around you, what are the competencies, what are the skill sets which will change because of the changing landscape around you. So I
Absolutely.
think pretty much that's about it's about knowing what it is. And I remember a very interesting quote by one of my mentors. So he had told me once long back that never let your schooling interfere with your education, right? So schooling will teach you certain things which will become very which will be there, which may become redundant beyond a point, but education is something which has to happen on an ongoing basis. So that is one statement which always stays with me and
Yeah.
pushes me to look at things. So I think that's how we need to look at future readiness, probably.
Very, very, very powerful statement, that you just made in terms of let your schooling not affect your education. And I think that's something that a lot of us would resonate with. I mean, the things that we've learned in school, well, I would say just about 10 to 20% is what we are actually, applying at work. Even for that matter, things learned in B school. While it gives us a theoretical sort of a foundation, but actually when we come and start working in a corporate, the world is very different. So yes, we are talking about a lot more than just literacy. I would say
And
we're talking about real
the
education.
the interesting part here is that a lot of these skill sets we are going to talk about today, they are not taught by B schools. So these are
Yes,
something that we need to educate ourselves on an ongoing basis. We need to find the opportunities to build them. It's not going to be
absolutely.
told you that, hey, you need to build this skill set and this is the way to do it. So
Yeah.
it's yeah.
Yes. I think even for organizations, it's like you want to prepare your employees for anything and, give them skills to thrive in the future. But right now, we may not have the technical skills that they may need in the future. But what we can definitely teach them are the future ready soft skills that will be applicable no matter what our technological, environment looks like. So the
Correct.
idea is to equip people with a very well-rounded set of not only the, of course, technology upgradation, and technology is a part of our lives, and anybody and everybody would have to adopt it if they want to really, be relevant in today's market or in the future market. But I think what's more important is those key soft skills, and which I'm sure we'll be, talking about when we, go a few minutes down this stream. So Atulya, now is, we all are in a very, I would say, an unpredictable situation right now with this pandemic going on. So, what role do you think the pandemic will play in changing these skill sets required for the future?
Big role. One word, big role. And in fact, let me give you some examples here. So what is the impact of pandemic on different industries is going to vary a lot on, depending on where you're sitting today. So take an example of a tourism industry, for that matter. Tourism industry, how many of us were going on vacation almost year and a half back? A raise of hand, almost everybody. How many of us are going on vacation today? Almost nobody. So what happens to those companies? Companies will have to evolve their business model. The whole approach
Yes.
of doing things has to change completely, right? And if you look at some of those tourism companies or tourism
Yeah.
operators, listed
Yeah.
companies, they have moved into a completely new model of coming out with a digital rewards and recognition kind of a platform where they've started engaging with companies that, hey, you are doing your year-end celebration, so can we assist you with that? So which essentially means that my core job of selling a vacation is out, right? So the skill set,
Yeah.
job, the whole outlook, the whole landscape has changed completely
Right.
for the industry. So depending on which industry you're sitting in,
Yeah.
there will be a different level of impact. Most of the organizations would also look at cutting down on costs. They will look at reviewing the budget. So which essentially means that gig economy will have a big role to play. In simple terms, gig economy would be your freelancers or third party
Yeah.
or outsourcing or one time jobs, which we call the gigs, will play a big role in the
Yeah.
future, which means a lot
Yeah.
of jobs will get
Yeah.
impacted. You will not have a lot of permanent opportunities. think about AI or machine learning. That is going to play a big role again with in the COVID situation, because companies will look at automation, and
Yeah.
this is the reality. In last 1 year, companies have revisited the budget structures. They've revisited how they look at technology.
Yeah.
A lot of them have reviewed the business model. So how quickly you are able to adapt to the change is going to play a big role. So in a nutshell, COVID impact is going to be on the business model, overheads, technology, all
Yeah.
those things are going to get influenced. Yeah.
Sure. I think, I agree with you there because, very simple example, like you said, you gave the example of the tourism industry, till last year was, completely booked, and it's not only just last year, even during this year, when the cases were a little better in the month of January, February, the industry picked up again. And I remember we were trying to book a place, but we were told everything is sold out, in resorts around Delhi NCR. So I think it's a very cyclical industry. What has happened is, so of course, when the economy, when the the overall environment is positive, and I mean positive, not COVID positive, I mean to say a positive in a better way, in a more positive way, in a happy way. So the tourism industry will go up, but then if something like this pandemic hits, it will come down. So what some very smart companies have started doing is evolve and innovate, and they've actually started converting their properties into homestays, investing in land, which is, look at Airbnb. I think Airbnb is doing really very well, because they've just nailed it. They've completely changed the way people looked at homestays. Now it is more safer. Now today, if you ask someone, would you want to go to a resort or to a hotel, to a homestay, people would say that. Similarly, I think with this online boom that has come in now. A few years back, if you wanted to buy a TV or a fridge, we used to go to the nearest store in the market and check it out. Today, if somebody says, okay, let's buy a TV, or what do you do? You go on Amazon or you go on Flipkart and you look at the deals, because they're giving you home delivery, they're giving you fabulous discounts, they're giving you sale, installation support, after sale support. So if I'm getting everything in the comfort of my house, why do I need to go out and buy all these things? So a point I'm trying to make is that people who have adapted now, the sellers, the neighborhood sellers, if they have listed themselves with some of these big e-commerce companies, they are still in business. But the ones who've not done it are struggling to even make ends meet. So what you said is completely right, that I think change is the only way that any business, be it, any industry you see can survive only and only if they are ready to take on the future. And for that, I think a lot of unlearning needs to happen. So people who are, willing to unlearn and then relearn are the people, I think, who would succeed in the coming times. What do you think? Do you
Yes,
think that?
and yeah, absolutely, absolutely, very relevant. And in fact, this reminds me of Jack Welch. So he says that if the rate of change on the outside
Yeah.
exceeds the rate of change on the inside, the end is near. So it's a very relevant comment
Yes.
at this juncture, because that's exactly what we are seeing. The rate of change outside is so fast, and companies who've not been able to adapt are the ones who are going to get wiped out very quickly, because if you're not doing it, somebody else is doing it at a faster
Yeah.
rate. And even
Absolutely.
think about a simple sales job. The job that you were doing with a B2C client, you going and meeting, doing a proper process of sales, doesn't exist anymore, because you don't get to travel anymore. So now it's
Yeah.
about remote sales, right? So that's an impact of pandemic on the kind of the way the job is to be done in future, or in the near future, has a very different skill set now. So now
Yeah.
it's more about how do you remotely sell, and it's not the same skill set as you would go in a store and do that.
Yeah.
And companies are adapting. They are moving to the new ways. So
Yeah.
simple example of how things are going to change.
Sure. We're talking about now things that are going to change. I mean, now we know that people have to sort of upskill themselves, change what is what they're currently doing to sort of look at new skills that would be required for the future. But talking specifically about skills and jobs now, in the change scenario, what do you think, Atulya? Which jobs or which skills are going to be, like, really hot, in demand?
Okay.
What are some of those?
Sure. So I would compartmentalize it into two parts. So this discussion is in two parts. So what are those skills that are stable skills? What are the skills which stable jobs? Sorry, we are talking about jobs right now. So stable jobs which will get impacted but will become more strategic in nature. And
Right.
then let's look at things which are there already, which are new jobs or which will become kind of more hot jobs or hot skills, as you may want to put it. So the
Sure.
stable jobs, the good news is when I talk about this to the MBA freshers, I always say that the good news is that all the marketing jobs or sales jobs or HR jobs or supply chain jobs are pretty much going to be there. So
Yeah.
robotics or technology is not going to replace that, because the deal here is these are managerial jobs and you will
Yeah.
still need them. The point
Yes.
is they will become much more strategic in nature.
Absolutely.
Take a HR example. Why would you want a person to spend time on telephonic interviews and do 1,000 interviews to select 100 people? No.
Yeah.
Your machine learning, your AI technology is going to replace that, which means my HR partner or my recruiting partner will spend more time on doing campus engagements, equity building, setting up the right culture, get the right talent. So the whole job outlook of a HR professional itself has changed because of this
Absolutely.
technology piece coming into play. Another example would be a HR business partner.
Yeah.
Why would you spend time answering hundreds of questions around, can you share the holiday list with me? Can you tell me the medical policy? Can you tell me the hospitalization policy? You can have a chatbot, right?
Yeah.
You can have a Amber technology which exists today. So you can have those technologies which will make your job more strategic in nature. So now you will
Yeah.
spend less time on non-value adding works. You will spend more time on the qualitative work which is required, which is more strategic in nature. Point number one, stable jobs. What are the new jobs? New jobs will have a huge influence of digital in them. This is going to be a common theme which is going to exist there. So think about a digital marketing job. This is
Mm.
going to be definitely something which is there for the future, because, and I always quote this example that when I was pretty young, it's not that I'm very old now, we used to use Facebook and Orkut for chatting. Today it's a
Yeah.
marketplace.
Oh,
Today it's a
yes.
marketplace, and it's
Yeah.
absolutely a game where everybody is getting involved. And in fact, there's an interesting statistic here that if you will go on a Coursera or a Udemy and look for what are those courses which attract a lot of people, you will find that Python followed by digital marketing. These are the top two courses which are being picked by almost everybody. They have a certification there, which essentially
Yeah.
means this is going to have a huge influence.
Yes.
Second is going to be user experience designer or innovation specialist. This is going to be one big job which is going to be there. And I always quote this example of this silly, stupid device which we carry all the time. And it just takes a second for us to swipe out the app from our lives if we are not getting that user experience. So that's
Yeah.
the kind of impatience we are sitting, the world in which we are sitting in.
Absolutely.
These jobs are going to be hot. The third one which comes into play is a data scientist and data analyst. These jobs are going to play a big role because, again, technology is going to play a big role when we talk about this, which is also a big data specialist job, which also comes into play. The fourth one is an interesting one. The fourth one is about organization development. Now, with
Mm.
this kind of change happening at geometric progression, the one which we are talking about, just
Yeah.
imagine the amount of impatience the companies are going to fall for. They are going to have inorganic growth. There are going to be plenty of acquisitions happening. There are going to be, the scenario is going to change a lot. So you
Yeah.
would need change management specialists, because you're
Right.
talking about a robot working side by side with a human, and probably some other elements with the gig economy coming into play, acquisitions happening. So you will need people who can handle and enable the organization to handle those situations. This is going to be a hot skill, hot job within the HR domain for sure. And the fifth one, which is going to be there, there's a laundry list. I'll keep it specific to certain elements. Is learning and development. You will hear so much about upskilling, reskilling. Today, a lot of people make choices about the company as a best employer by saying, "Hey, am I getting the best salary? Am I getting the best boss? Am I getting the best culture?" Tomorrow, you may have a situation where they may say, "Can this company make me employable for next 20 years by giving me the right skill sets or the right learning or the right upskilling?" So this element of L&D is again going to become pretty crucial, right? So innovation, user experience, data scientist, digital marketing, OD,
Yeah.
learning and development. I think these are some of those areas which will have a big role to play. And all of them will have the theme of digital around them, stable jobs we've just talked about. So good news,
Sure.
MBA MBAs are still stable.
I'm sure a lot of MBAs are going to be happy to, or MBA aspirants, they're going to be happy to listen to them, because there is a fear in people that automation is going to lead to mass unemployment. But it may not lead to mass unemployment, but it is almost certainly going to necessitate the redefinition of most of the jobs and the requisite skills. So, like you said, there's going to be a lot of strategic element in whatever we do, and all these, the routine, mundane jobs is something that's going to be, taken away from the existing profiles of people. So, I think a lot more strategic insights of the field, whichever field you are into, is going to come in very handy. It's not just the superficial knowledge, or the, I would say, the very base level knowledge that's going to help people in the future. It's going to be a lot of upskilling in terms of developing a strategic insight of your craft, whether it is marketing, HR, finance, whatever it is, something that adds value. Because this is also telling me that organizations are going to be now dependent on humans to add value. They're no longer going to be working like machines, doing the work that any machine or a robot can do. But of course, when it comes to thinking, that's where probably thinking, and a very important aspect, emotions, that's where probably organizations are going to need humans. So those two skills are definitely something that people would need to sort of invest in. So okay, now asking the opposite, which jobs or skills would become irrelevant or redundant in the coming times under the umbrella of the change scenario? You did mention about the mundane routine jobs, but apart from that, what other jobs or other fields of specialization you feel will no longer be in existence?
Yeah. So first and foremost, a disclaimer here that these jobs are important jobs. I always start off by saying that these jobs may get replaced, they may get gigged, they may get AI'd or machine learned, but that does not mean that they are not important. Of course, they are going to stay. But the point is the company going to have an investment which it was doing in the past now in the future? The answer is no. It's going to change, right? So, for example, think about a data entry operator, or think about an accounting job, or think about a payroll job, right? So these are some of the things which are going to be very repetitive in nature. And even if I have to just talk about a few more, so client information, customer service, material recording, stockkeeper, businesses, administrative managers, right? So these are some of those jobs which are like very repetitive in nature. And anything which has that theme of repetition attached to it will always have that element of either getting outsourced or being given to a freelancer, even a coding job for that matter, right?
Yeah.
So at some point in time, a lot of people would say it's a hot skill. Yes, it's a hot skill in certain areas, but will the company employ everybody to do a coding job? The answer is no. Gig economy, the majority of the players, majority of the workforce is doing coding actually, and a majority of workforce is doing freelancing jobs. So all those things are going to move out eventually, and companies are not going to invest full-time resources. Payroll is not a new story. We all know that these HR processes are getting outsourced, and companies are looking at mapping each and every process in detail, seeing what are those areas which are repetitive, which can be digitized. And it's a constant effort, and this has gone up in the last few years. And in fact, with the pandemic coming into play, the speed has increased, because now it's more about how quickly can you get there.
Yes.
And all the technologies we are talking about are going to make it pretty easy in the coming days. So those folks in these jobs need to upskill. This is where there would be a clear need of upskilling. Otherwise, they'll be out of the job market for sure. At least for the jobs which they are doing, they'll be out of that job market. So you either build a new skill, a reskill, or you do a upskill, which brings you in a better position.
Sure. Atulya, a lot of people who are, listening to us, and a lot of your subscribers of, your YouTube channel are students, people who are still studying. And so what is your advice for them for the coming times? What is it that they should be focusing on, so that while they are studying, And when I say studying, I mean to say while they are taking their education and not literacy, what do they, what skills do they focus on developing so that they are ready now for the skills that would be required by the time they look for a job?
Yeah. So, this again, I keep quoting people. I just keep borrowing their quote. So let me go with one more here. So it's a John Naisbitt quote which says that the most important skill to acquire is the skill to learn how to learn, right? So because you have so much of information around you today, if you look at the world around you, and this is the most common question which I get from people saying that, should I go on Coursera? Should I go on XYZ platform? What are those courses which I should pursue?
Yeah.
So my advice is, if we are talking about the top 10 skills, which essentially are the ones which we need to look at, because those are going to play a big role. And within those top 10 skills, you have the element of digital as well, which calls out those specific 5, 6 skill sets, which are going to help you. So I'm still building on the suspense. I'm still not letting the cat out of the bag here. So if you want, I
Okay.
can talk right now, or if you want me to talk me later, I can do
Okay,
that.
wait for the suspense. We're all waiting with a bated breath for your suspense. So let's continue the excitement and
Yeah,
wait for it a
yeah,
little
yeah.
longer. But
I'll just
okay,
mention one thing if you allow me. I'll just
yes,
mention one quick one here. I think the
yes,
one skill set you should definitely look at is growth mindset. And I always quote the example of Ranchor Das Chachar from Three Idiots, because he talks about how quickly you can. You should not run after things. You should run after learning, which is going to
yeah,
give you success eventually. And that is exactly what makes a big difference. And growth mindset is about keeping your eyes and ears open around the environment. I always tell them, because it's a question for students, your inner world is your institute, but that's not the end of it. You got to be active. You got to focus on being visible on social media platforms, not on Instagram and on Facebook. I'm talking about LinkedIn here, where you will get a lot of relevant information about how the leaders think, where the world is moving, how the companies are thinking about technology, industrial revolution 4.0, how your profession is going to get impacted, what are the hot topics, right? So those are important aspects for you, because that puts you ahead of the curve. If you're
right.
just focused on the inner world, that's more on the theory side of it. Yes, very important. Grades are important, but education is bigger, like I said earlier. So you got to look at the inner and the outer world.
Absolutely. And I think in the age of networking, where we all have seen, how important it is to have your network, it's very, very important for people, who are still in these schools or in colleges, to start building that network from now onwards. And then, by the time they reach, a particular age where they look for they get a job, they would already have a very wide perspective of so many people, because every person that you connect with, especially on a platform like LinkedIn, there's a lot to learn. And there are many skills that you get from the right kind of networking, and a lot of those skills are the skills that you actually need to be future ready. So thanks for answering that question. While we'll wait on to the crux of the the session for the end, which is the top 10 skills that we would need. But Atulya, coming to an organization. Now I'm running an organization. So as a leader, how would I know whether my employees have the necessary future ready skills? Is there any sort of metric or an indicator that indicates to the leaders of the organizations that how ready is their workforce for the future?
Yeah. That's a great question. So I must compliment you for asking that. So I think the starting point here is two things. One, the behavioral competencies and the functional competencies specifically. Because
Yeah,
if the organizations have a very clear roadmap in terms of business, they are very clearly able to define what are some of those functional competencies which they require. And behavioral here would be things like emotional intelligence, communication, interpersonal, blah blah blah. There are many, but
right,
functional are specific to the technical skills. And here we
right.
are talking more in the land of, do I know how to handle objection? Can I become the best sales guy? What are the skill sets required for selling, for marketing,
Yeah,
for HR? Right. So what are those functional skill sets? And great organizations would know that they will keep evolving in terms of those functional skill sets. They have a constant review of those technical skill sets happening on a regular basis. And if I may use a few technicalities here, so you have a typically in a great organization, you'll have a skill matrix, which talks about the list of all the skills, list of all the people, where do they stand in terms of proficiency. So one snapshot of that one pager gives you a good idea as a CEO that where do my people stand in terms of technical competencies, and those are going to get measured through you can have technology assessments, tests, various methods to assess that. And constantly the organization would look at upgrading people, and of course while they do that, while they are upskilling people, they're also making sure that those people are actually interested in getting upgraded, because
Yeah,
upskilling is a lot of change management. A lot of people
yeah,
may not adapt to that kind of a change. so
that's
so
right.
people who don't do that, they get impacted in terms of their career growth, right? The career growth becomes a limiting factor, because the whole assessment of performance is on your what you do on the job, but the potential is how much are you agile to learn new things, right? So your
Right.
potential is drive for success, emotional intelligence, learning agility. This is where you get stuck when you're not able to move. And those skill matrices are what typically organizations use. They are pretty simple to use. Most important is you got to define at least the next 5-year plan on what are the important skills which I need to build, where do my people stand in the company. And again, you may define very clearly that at what level, what proficiency do I require, and then accordingly, your L&D
Yeah.
interventions will
Yeah.
center around. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is something very similar to having IDPs, having individual development plans for your people, and especially when you have a very set talent management process in your organization, you already have a talent pool, and in which you do conscious work around development centers, and then that's how you come up with the IDPs. I think that's also one of the techniques of getting to know what are the skills. First of all, it's important for the leaders to themselves know that what are the skills that the organization is going to need in the next 5 years. So, like you said, having a 5-year plan is, or even if it's not a 5-year plan, at least have a vision for the organization that in the coming few years, what is this organization going to look like? And unless and until they themselves don't know how do they expect the people under down the line to know that. So I think first step is, like you said, have a 5-year plan, or have a definite plan, or have a vision for the organization, and then identify the talent pool in your organization, people that you really want, you really see those people as a part of your larger vision, people taking your organization to where it wants to go to. And I think also spell out the skills that would be required for the organization to reach where you're wanting it to reach. And through interventions like assessment centers, development centers, I think there is a lot that can come out of these exercises, and tell leaders that how ready. It's a deep dive, a deep dive that you do. It's a diagnostic that you're doing of the health of your organization in terms of the skills. So I think that's another way to do it, to do
Yeah.
a sort of deep dive, and then upskill your people. And your L&D needs, your L&D calendar should be talking to it. It shouldn't be just an L&D calendar that is there to fulfill the mandates. It's an ancient concept now. L&D calendar
Yeah.
has to now talk to the vision of the organization,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the skills that you need for the organization to move from point A to point B. So
Yeah,
great, great.
and if I may
Yeah,
just add one bit to
yeah,
this whole discussion, it's a pretty
yeah.
interesting discussion. So, one very important aspect is how the leadership thinks, and I've seen a pattern that organizations who are game changers, or they're always ahead of the curve in terms of upskilling or talking things which a lot of people will say, oh, this is something which cannot happen, right? So
Yeah.
think about Apple, creativity with technology. Nobody talked about creativity with technology, and they were way ahead of its time. Steve Jobs was way ahead of his time, which
Absolutely.
and they're not hung up on upskilling only, right? They are very quick, agile to get people from outside where required. They always operate with a hybrid model, right? So
Right.
it's not always 100% about upskilling, because sometimes you're bringing in technologies where you need the talent from outside and you need the right skill set from outside. So they are able to bring everything together, be very predictive, way ahead of time, and most of them would make jaw-dropping statements that, and we'll a lot of times go back and think, hey, Elon Musk is talking about the electric car, maybe does it really exist, is it something which can happen? So those people will make you think twice, right? So those are the companies who are really fast, very quick in predicting and then calling out what skill sets they require. They buy it from outside if required.
Yeah.
They develop it internally also. They always look at
Yeah.
both models.
I was just wondering that how come we are talking about future ready and the mention of Elon Musk doesn't come. There's no webinar that I have done in which Elon Musk is not mentioned because of the kind of transformational work that he's absolutely doing. Amazing, amazing to see that. Okay, so Atulya, now leadership. You talked about, you and I talked about the leadership part, that it's important for leaders themselves to, have an understanding of the skills that will take the organization from a particular level to the other. A related aspect of that is the culture. So, what do you think? What role does the culture of the organization has to play in this entire future readiness?
Great. Another great question. So I think partly you have captured bit of it. I would cover something in addition to that is your whole definition of your philosophy on learning. I think that is to me the starting point. So a lot of organizations would say, hey, we are a learning organization, but in reality, learning exists on the calendar, mandates are completed, nothing happens beyond that, right? So great organizations would define very clearly on where they are and where they want to reach. I think that path to them is pretty clear, and
Sure.
that comes with a lot of jaw-dropping statements which we just talked about. So they are very clear that this is where we want to reach.
Yeah.
And by the way, all the systems talk to each other. So L&D is not a separate absolute function where you say, hey, HR guy will come, he will run a training session in a typical traditional model, great food, uh, great networking, you go back, nothing happens after that. It's not like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Learning organizations will have a very clear linkage with your appraisal and your development mechanism, right? So appraisal tells you the rating, your strengths will come out from a 360-degree feedback, which gives you some idea about behavioral gaps. Your skill matrices on technical aspects will talk about some technical deficiencies which need to be worked upon, right? So everything gets integrated into a L&D plan for the
Right.
organization. So this is where your employee is lacking in certain elements where you want to reach. But the starting point is definition of where do you want to take them, and all that is linked with competencies. If the organization is able to translate those required skills into competencies and keep evolving over a period of time, I think that is the culture which great learning organizations are able to do. I think that to me is a big differentiating factor.
Sure.
And they have a very clear linkage of a reward and recognition mechanism around it. So you talked about IDP. IDP to me is not only development, from a career perspective, it's a big reward because somebody
Absolutely.
who's able to exhibit high potential and is able to get great opportunities to work internationally, great opportunities to work on the big projects is a huge reward.
Yes.
It's a recognition of great work or the potential that you have, and then eventually you make a fast career accelerator assignment and so on. So it's all linked. Great organizations have a very clear linkage of all these small pieces together. They never look at L&D as a L&D. They
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
connect it with the business
Right.
and yeah.
Yes. I think what we are talking about here is, very clearly telling me that organizations now really need to have very robust talent management systems and process. So,
Yeah.
like you said, it cannot be in isolation. L&D cannot be L&D, and talent management cannot just be about hypos. It has to, it has to be. There has to be a synergy, and all of this has to ultimately be linked to the business. Where is it that you want to take the business in the future? And I think so there's a lot of collaborative leadership that we are talking about here, because here if you see HR, the L&D people, the talent management people, the HR head and the business head, they all have to work in a very, very collaborative way to create a culture which supports this kind of an upskilling or reskilling, or getting in new talent. So I think specifically talking about culture, I think there's going to be a lot of collaboration wherein the business head would also need to don the hat of an HR person, an HR head, and likewise an HR person would have to don the hat of business, and work mutually towards doing work around these skills, that are going to be so important in the future. So those
Yeah.
are my 2 cents to this.
Agree. Absolutely
So
agree.
let's now, open the Pandora's box, and let's now kill the suspense, and let's tell our viewers what they would like to know. That what are the top 10 skills that everybody, today whether it is a student or it is a working professional, or it is someone who's on a sabbatical right now and wanting to restart their careers. What are those top 10 skills that would be relevant for anybody who wants to be a part of the future ready workforce?
Yeah. So I'll quickly cover, the top 10. So first one to me would be emotional intelligence. Okay. And you will see some interesting ones here, because you might say that, hey, is this really important? But the point is, if you don't have it, are you going to grow beyond a level, beyond a point? The answer is no. Right. And from my experience of last 16 years, I can tell you that if there is one skill set which can make a difference to your career professionally, your relationships on personal front, whether you are in campus, whether you're in college, is going to be emotional intelligence. And that to me is not only skill of future, it's present now, super future, future 5.0, or whatever you may want to call it. It is always going to be there. And I
Yeah.
always quote the example of Zomato. So I ask this question to students, that how many of you have placed an order on Zomato? Everybody says, I have placed it. How many of you have not got your order at least once in your lifetime on time? Everybody raises their hand. And when you go on the app, you are actually super frustrated because you're hungry. And when you go on the app says, hey, I hope you're having a great day. By the way, that's a chatbot you're talking to. So technology is not going to have emotional intelligence a lot of time. It is for the humans. And a lot of times you will have people working with you, and it's actually a very important starting point for you to be self-aware, because that's the starting point of emotional intelligence. And a lot of students ask me this question, that how do you build that? This is also a question which keeps coming in. And the point is, you have to know yourself. That's the starting point. And there are various ways to do that. If I may take some time to explain, so you have a Clifton Strength Finder tool, you have you can take feedback, you can do a lot of things. But the question which always keeps coming is, would you want to have a person in your team who does not have emotional intelligence? I think that basically gives you a very clear answer, that this is a very important skill set to be built. And a lot of times I've seen that people reach a certain level in their organization, they reach middle management, but once they move into people management roles, different customers, big struggle to move there. And one of the big elements of potential assessment is actually emotional intelligence. So
Absolutely.
how much are you?
It's an example that I give on, when I go for these guest lectures, that, you're from an IIM, and you would be, along with you, 10 other batchmates would be picked up by the same company, but there's only one person who becomes the CEO of the company. And a lot of it has got to do with his emotional maturity. Technically, everybody is very sound. It's the cream of the country. So there is no question on the technical skills, but what makes difference in that one person's career, which makes him, take the top job, is the emotional intelligence. And just like you, I've also experienced it. I've seen excellent, technical guys with great skills, but not able to survive in an organization because of the lack of this very, very important skill, which is emotional intelligence. So definitely agree 100, 200, 500% that this is the top skill, I think, which is never going to get redundant, because machines cannot, they may do a lot of work, but they cannot emote. They do not have emotions. And for that, organizations are always going to be dependent on human beings. So emotional intelligence is never going to get out of fashion, for sure.
Yeah, I also agree with that. I think the second one to me would be creativity, because again, when you're talking about robotics or any of the technologies you're seeing is actually outcome of somebody's creativity, right? So that's not going anywhere. And I always quote the 3M or the Apple example, that these were the companies who changed the game purely because of creativity. They came out with something which was integrating something which was very unique, very innovative with technology. Nobody was actually thinking about that. Laptop was a laptop, or desktop was a desktop. But today, when you look at a laptop, it's a very cosmetically appealing, it's a very different device, and it has so much of creative element to it. And so basically, you have to look at situations where you can build your creativity, and there are ways to do that. It's a separate topic in itself. There a lot of times we say that, is it something that you can build? Actually, there's a process behind the whole thing. So there's this very interesting book called Atomic Habits, which I really like a lot, and it talks about some part of it. So I would encourage people to read that. But when you activate your mind, what it talks about is, when you activate your mind, your creativity happens automatically, and you have to force yourself to think creative. A lot of times we don't do that,
Right.
and
Right.
it's a skill set which can be built, and it's a process which you have to follow. And this is going to be your USP. Your personal brand is your own creativity, which nobody can bring on the table. That's about you. So that is another one to me. The third
Great.
one to me would be on leadership, which is not going anywhere, because companies are going to be run by leaders at the end of the day. And the leadership element that we are talking about here is both personal leadership and people leadership, right?
Right.
And we heard this from, probably, we would have heard this statement many times, but I keep repeating it again and again in these forums, is that leadership is about knowing when to stand on the balcony and when to be on the dance floor, right? So in a disc, you go there, Lord of the Drinks, great place. You should know when you should be on the balcony, right? When you should step back and see how your
Yeah.
people are doing on the ground, on the dance floor. But when they're stuck, you should know when you should be going down and helping them solve the problem. So this is an important skill set. And one example which comes to my mind, I'm not a great reader of newspaper and television channel, news channels, or politics. So I've picked my leader from cricket, which is MS Dhoni in this case,
Oh, yeah.
who to me is a classic example of all the three skills we just talked about:
Yeah.
creativity, emotional intelligence, and leadership, right? So you will probably have a YouTube viral video of the day if Dhoni loses his cool, or if there is a situation where he's
Yeah.
very expressive of his
Yeah.
emotions. He'll
Yeah.
not give it to you. That's an example of emotional intelligence. Think about
Yeah.
the India Bangladesh match where he took off his glove even before the ball was bowled, and he did that run out, which won us the match by one run. Creativity.
Yeah.
And of course, leadership, plenty of examples, the kind of tournaments you're winning and all that, right? So, but the important point to note here is we are all not natural leaders, right?
Yeah.
I'll repeat it. We are not natural leaders. We are all backbenchers. Majority of us are backbenchers. So what we have to do is we have to push ourselves to move a few benches ahead and take on those opportunities proactively. And most of the time we are happy to miss them. We are not happy to
Yeah.
embrace those opportunities. So whether you are a school student, or you are a MBA grad, or you are in a company, you can't afford to miss those opportunities to pick those leadership assignments, or leadership
Yeah.
engaging situations. I mean, in a college, you get many. In a B school, you could be in placecom, you could be sitting in the guest relations committee. So many things you can do, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
leadership, point number three. Uh, yeah, you're saying something? Sorry.
No, I was just saying that I so agree on this leadership part again, because what you said in terms of creativity, in terms of the first two skills, they're all an amalgamation into leadership. So I'm sure the skills that you're going to talk about now are also going to be in some way a part of the entire package of a leader. So I think it's again something that's not going to be replaced by any amount of technology or any amount of automation, and it is there to stay. So focus on developing leadership skills in yourselves. And like you said, we are all not born leaders. I mean, and I don't know. It's just an observation. There is no data around it, but I've seen that a lot of backbenchers end up becoming leaders, and a lot of front benchers end up becoming followers. you know, and I'm talking really. I have seen so many people like that who were, the backbenchers in class, but are leading very good organizations today. So there's something about it. But I think it's not just about, like you said, it's not just about literacy. It's about education, and that's what makes a difference. So it's everybody's not a born leader. I
Yeah.
think leadership skills is something that you can develop in yourself, you can inculcate in yourself, provided you work with a lot of focus towards it. And so it's very important to listen to these skills that you've just mentioned, and you are going to mention, because all of these are going to somewhere converge into making you a great leader. So please
That's true.
continue.
Sure, sure. The fourth one to me would be analytical and critical thinking. So this is another one which, again, your B schools will not teach you, but you will have to look at opportunities to think in that direction, right? And there's plenty of material, masala available. I can offline connect with many of you if you want. The various sources of information. But the point is, how do you take the meat out of so much of things happening around you, right? How do you look at situations? How do you look at the best possible solution, right? Those are the things which really confuse you. And with so much of information overload around us, it's not an easy thing to do. It's not a great It's not an easy skill to build. So your critical thinking, analytical thinking, I always say you have to think like Sherlock Holmes, right? So you have to think like Benedict, and that's not easy. So a lot of times you're not tuned to think that way in a organization or in an environment.
Right.
The fifth one, the fourth one, fifth one, yeah, is about active learning with growth mindset. So I've already talked about that. I'll not touch too much on that. Inner
Yeah.
world, outer world. Inner world, outer world. Remember these two. This is important because it's about constantly challenging yourself on what's changing around me, what's changing in my inner world, outer world. How much are you investing in yourself, right?
Yes.
Whether you are a corporate professional, whether you are a student, yourself own, your own investment in yourself is what we call growth mindset. How much are you able to broaden your horizon to look at things, right? Are you a HR guy who doesn't know business? Are you a business guy who doesn't know HR? Quoting your own example, right? Are you somebody who's a great supply chain professional, has no idea about marketing? Can you survive? Probably not. Will you be producing the best product for your company? Beyond a point, growth is going to get halted for you. If you are a student of HR, do understand business. It's very, very important. Business is there not because of HR. HR is there because of business. It's the
Yes.
other way around, right? So
Absolutely.
growth mindset, extremely important. Judgment and decision making, once again, for you, this is going to be one of the very, very critical skill sets. One wrong judgment, one wrong decision, careers have ended for people, right? So, and world is going to be dynamic, and I always quote the example of Ratan Tata. Kind of investments in the unicorns which he has done over the years requires a lot of analytical, critical thinking, judgment, and decision making. So there's an investment in a Paytm, which is a unicorn. There is an investment in a Ola, which is a unicorn, and there would be many more such companies. It doesn't happen just like that. There
Yeah.
is a lot of judgment and decision making which comes into play, and you will have to build those skill sets. Again, not something which the campus will say that I am doing a session for you to build your judgment and decision making. There are tools and
Yeah.
tricks available, can connect
Yeah.
on offline, can give lot of inputs around that, but very important skill of the future, now, present, whatever you want to call it.
Absolutely. No, I just want to add one more to this one. Actually, just what you just said. This is also a lot of it has got to do with your ability to think ahead. And people who have the ability to look into the future, of course, you can't predict it, but people who have a knack for thinking of the impact of the decision in the long run are the people who actually, in my experience, do really well in their careers, because they have the ability to forecast the impact of the decision that's going to be there on people, on the organization, on the business. And a lot of it, if you have the ability to forecast, or if you have the ability to look into the bigger picture, there is a very less probability that you will make wrong decisions. The accuracy of your decisions is really good. And I've seen this, a lot of people are very myopic when they take decisions in their view. It's a
Yeah.
very myopic view of, okay, abhi ye kar lete hain, dekhenge kya hoga baad mein. Now that's very detrimental for any organization and for your own career, because you will be all the time doing firefighting. So where's the time to grow? Where's the time to do good stuff, strategic stuff? And we are talking about future skills, future jobs which are going to involve a lot of critical thinking, a lot of strategy. So if we are only firefighting all the time, where are we going to have the time to you know do strategic work? So just wanted to add this thing, the ability to judge the impact of your decisions in the future. That probably is another one that could add on to this one.
Definitely. And going back on growth mindset, I think I wanted to quote one example because I saw you the other day posting a message on wellness. I think when you talk about growth mindset, again, it's a combination of how much you are investing in yourself, and whether it's through yoga, whether it's through art of living, whether it's through your gymming or different things which you do to activate your mind,
Yeah.
will also have an impact on your creativity, by the way, because
Oh yes.
it's all proven. Everything is related to hormonal effects on the body, whether it's a dopamine or it's a endorphin or various things. So it's all linked, right? So all these skills, you will find that they have a very clear linkage with each other. So one skill built will result in improvement in other areas. Next one
Sure.
for me would be interpersonal skills and communication skills. Robots are not going to do that. You have to do that. And think about a workplace where you have to succeed in the future, you got to have those skills. Those softer elements are going to come into play. And I always quote this example of my favorite movie called Rocket Singh, Salesman of the Year, which is about this Ranbir Kapoor movie where he, creates a company within a company, how he influences people. And just think about it, right? There's a character called Mishra in the movie, which is a PN, and everybody teases him by calling him cup plate. But this guy goes there and he calls him Mishra ji for the first time. That one Mishra ji mention changes the whole the whole attitude of the person. He says, oh, he's the guy who can actually help me in the future. So that's an example of interpersonal skill for you, and is going to be supremely critical. And with that, I will add the element of cultural and diversity dexterity, because the whole environment in which we are going to operate now is going to change socially also, right? You have women in the workforce, which has increased. You are working with students, you are working with experienced professionals, you are working with culturally diverse professionals. A lot of international people you are going to work with. There's a mix of culture. And add to that the element of LGBT, disabled, right? So the whole work environment is going to be a good mix. It's going to be your cultural intelligence which is going to come into play. And I've seen examples where things have fallen apart just because you did not have those social or the cultural elements in your skill sets, right? So this is another important element for me which is going to be there. I must mention, skills of the future without digital skills is incomplete, right? So digital has to be there. And very specifically, if I have to call out the digital skill sets, I'll quickly read out actually. So it's augmented and virtual reality, cloud computing, app and web enabled services, IoT, machine learning, artificial intelligence, blockchain, digital marketing, and user entity and big data analytics. I think all these areas combined together will have a huge influence. All these areas combined together will have a huge influence on any of the jobs, right? Whether you think about background checks happening in future for HR being done by blockchain technology, or an interview, or right. So all sorts of things are going to get impacted. We started with the example of IoT on how your whole work, how your home can become a smart home, right? So everything is going to be impacted by this. So you can't be a person who doesn't understand these skills. It's important.
Sure.
And last but not the least, I think we've covered all of them except one, which is about embracing change. And we started with that quote of Jack Welch that is going to stay with us forever. I think that is important for us. And I always quote the example. I don't take the name of the company, but I think we all will understand. We had the GSM technology long back, and almost all of us were using that phone. If I asked for a raise of hand, everybody was using that phone. But today, what has happened? That phone doesn't exist anymore, right? So it's a smartphone technology. So the things have changed over the years. People have adapted to new ways. So how quickly are you able to adapt to those changes happening around you? First and foremost, awareness of the change. You should know what is happening, and how quickly are you going to adapt? And all this is not easy. It's going to happen if you have growth mindset, if you have creativity, if you have the ability to challenge. And all these skill sets are interlinked. I keep on saying that again and again. If you build one, it has an impact on the other. So that's where I would stop and say, right, these are the top 10 skills.
Absolutely. I think that's a great list, a very comprehensive list, and I'm sure a lot of takeaways for our listeners today. Just one skill, maybe you've mentioned it in interpersonal skills, but one skill that I feel definitely everyone who's wanting to, start their careers, because ultimately you'll grow, is people management. I mean, that's something that technology may take care of the paperwork, in terms of your, your appraisal forms and all of that, but ultimately grievance handling, and I'm not talking about a chat box on the phone which says that I haven't received my order, but I'm still saying hope you're having a nice day and all of that. So I think people management is something that definitely anybody who begins their career, it's a skill that everybody has to learn. And which is why it becomes very important for people to become, to learn something about HR, in terms of how to manage your people. It's like HR for non-HR. We must come up with a program like that, which is called HR for non-HR, because a lot of people, while they're good at their work, but at their own work, but they don't know how to get work done from others, how to inspire them, how to keep them motivated, what is it that drives each member of the team. Those are skills that come with, of course, experience, but a lot of it comes with conscious thinking, that I have to look after my team if I really want to succeed in my own leadership role. So I think people management, I would add to that exhaustive list of yours, one more skill, that is people management. Okay, I think we've already run short of time. Just one question we will take, which is come from the the audience, which is, what about SQ? I'm assuming this SQ means social quotient. Do you think it's gaining popularity among HR to assess the SQ of a candidate as well?
Of course, I mean, see, ultimately it's about teamwork, right? And when you talk about social dexterity, it's about how well you work with people. And there are enough tools available with HR professionals which assess you on that. They'll throw you in situations where they'll give you situation reaction tests, and they'll check your reaction on how you operate, whether in a
Yes.
questionnaire, test, or an interview. And it's important because ultimately, who are you going to work with? In a managerial job, you are going to work with people, and Shivani has just mentioned about people management being one big element, and whatever skills I was talking, they all translate into people management. So your interpersonal, your emotional intelligence, all these things come together to make you a socially acceptable, socially intelligent leader, also to a large extent. So very important. Yes,
Absolutely.
it
And
is
I
very
think we've
important.
got, enough examples around where we see that people who are high on the social quotient are actually leaders who are very popular, very successful. They have huge many followers, and followers not because they are asking them to follow, but followers who themselves want to learn from them, who get inspired by what they do. So I think social skills is something which is extremely important for any good professional to succeed in today's world. Okay, great. I think we can continue forever on this topic because there is just so much to talk about here, but we have a constraint of time. So I'd like to, end it here. Atulya, it was a great discussion with you. I personally enjoyed this session a lot. Many takeaways for everyone here. And this is such an important topic, when we're in the middle of a pandemic and there is just so much of uncertainty around. It is something that the people should seriously think about, the skills that they should be working on now to actually become ready for the jobs that are going to be created in the future. So thank you very much, Atulya. Pleasure to have you here with us, and we hope to see you again very, very soon on this platform on another, equally exciting topic.
Thank you so much. It's been a very exciting discussion, and I think I was also fully charged up during the discussion. And thanks for such wonderful questions. And I will look forward to future opportunities as well. And my message to all the viewers here that this is relevant. Do find some time to think through it. And if there are any questions, I also have a YouTube channel. You may connect with me there. Otherwise, I'm also available on call. So my best wishes to everybody who's watching it today, and stay safe, stay healthy. Don't step out of your houses. The pandemic is not over yet.
Absolutely. Stay safe. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today on a Saturday afternoon. And we wish that you all stay healthy and stay safe. Thank you. Take care. Bye bye. Have a great weekend.
Bye bye.